Understanding balance sheet questions. Question number 1. Which of the following characteristics are required for recognition of a balance sheet asset? Which item do we recognize as a balance sheet asset? An asset is a resource from which future economic benefits are expected to be flowing to the organization. It's a true statement. True. The asset is a tangible one. This is wrong. Assets may be intangible. It's not necessarily that they always need to be tangible one. And it's not necessary that it always involves some cost and acquisition. Like when you undergo into a leasing arrangement, maybe you have paid very little amount, but you acquired the right to use the asset. You control them. So this is the incorrect statement. So the first characteristic is correct. The second is not. That makes C to be the correct option. Resources controlled, not necessarily owned, as a result of past transactions that are expected to provide future benefits are referred to as assets. True. What is equity? It's a residual interest calculated by deducting the liabilities from the total assets. Not an asset. Liabilities result in outflow of economic resources. Liabilities are obligations that will involve some future outflow of resources. Not the right answer. A. Which of the following statements about classified balance sheet is least likely accurate? A classified balance sheet distinguishes between current and non-current assets. That is true. That is the classified balance sheet. Groups accounts by subcategories. This is true as well. Categorization, classification through current, non-current assets are grouped as well. We are looking for the one that is least likely true. Presents the net equity of each asset by subtracting its related liability. Every asset has, as I said, every resource is funded by some source of finance. So it says that every asset must be netted off with the related liability. We don't do that, do we? Assets and liabilities are not reported in the netted form. They are reported separately. Assets separately, liability separately. This is the wrong statement and the right answer. Next. According to the International Financial Reporting Standard, how do cash dividends received from the trading securities and the financial securities measured at fair value through OCI affect net income? Now, interesting question. We have held for trading securities. We have available for sale debt or preferred stock that goes through the OCI. If we receive dividend from held for trading securities and if we receive dividend from available for sale securities, they will increase your income. They are a part of income. It is only the issue of the unrealized gain at the balance sheet date. The unrealized gain and loss of HFT, that goes to the income statement, and unrealized gain and loss of AFS, that goes to OCI. That's the difference. If you receive dividend or if you receive interest, dividends and interest on HFT and AFS, it is a part of income. Hence, income would increase in both cases. That makes A to be the correct option. The balance sheet is most likely to provide an analyst with information about firms what? Balance sheet provides information relating to solvency. Yes, solvency is measured from the numbers on the balance sheet. True. If I want to know about the strength of the internal controls in an organization, balance sheet is not the right place to look for. We need the management report and the auditor's report that is required under section 404 and section 302 of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. You don't need to know that. Management accountant and CPAs need that. So the internal control report given by the auditors and the management commentary is required under section 404 and section 302 of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Operating profitability is determined through income statement. Wrong. Since we want to measure solvency, the balance sheet is the right. That's A is the right answer. A. Next. At the beginning of the year, Alpha Corporation, which reports under US GAAP, purchased 10,000 shares of Beta Corporation for $20 per share. During the year, Beta paid 2,000 cash dividend to Alpha. At the end of the year, the Beta stock jumped from 20 to 22 per share. What amount should Alpha recognize in its year-end income statement if the investment is treated as available for sale? And what amount should be recognized in the income statement if it is treated as a trading security, held for trading? A very interesting question. What part of it will be treated in income statement if it's an AFS? If it's an AFS, there are two things involved. One, there is a dividend of $2,000. Second, there is share price appreciation from 20 to 22, representing a gain of $2. How many shares are there? 10,000 shares. 10,000 times 2 means 20,000 is the unrealized gain. Unrealized gain of 20,000. If it's AFS, this 2,000 will go to the income statement, and this 20,000 will go to the other comprehensive income. Right? If it's held for trading, this 2,000 definitely is a part of income statement, and this 20,000 will go to income statement. Our question said what would be credited to the income statement in case of IFS, in case of AFS, this $2,000. What will be credited to the income statement in case of held for trading is going to be 2,000 plus 20,000, 22,000. A fine question. So it means for AFS available for sale, the income statement will be credited with 2,000. In case of held for trading securities, it's going to be 22. So that makes C to be the correct option. C it is. One of the firm's assets is 27 days commercial paper that the firm intends to hold to maturity. This could be a misleading term. Normally we report held to maturity items as a non-current assets or long-lived assets. One of its liabilities is a short position in the common stock, which of the firms holds for trading purpose. How should this asset and this liability be classified? Now we have an asset 270 days commercial paper, which means it's mature within 270 days, that is 1 year or operating cycle, whichever is lower. So we haven't been given the information about operating cycle. So this is clearly within 1 year. So it is a current asset. It's a current liability. This short position representing what you call the short sell called bhata in our share bazaar. It's a current liability. You sell borrowed shares to be returned to the broker. So it's a current liability. It's a current asset. It's a current liability. Where would we report? How should these two assets and liabilities be classified? One should be classified as a current, other should be classified as non. Both are current. Current asset, current liability. Both should be classified as current. One is a current asset, other is a current liability. Next. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. Par value, also called the nominal value, the face value, assigned to share is a corporation charter. True. Par value or nominal value or face value, it is the value assigned when a firm gets registered with SEC. It has to be determined whether the par value you have set for your firm is $10, $1 or $100. It's almost everywhere in any organization that is listed, that is registered with the SEC, or any regulator like in India as well. So it has to be determined while the company is in the registration process. What would be the par of the share? True. The first one is true. Second, the par value of common stock represents the amount the corporation received when the stock is issued. This is wrong. Your issued price could be more or less than the par. This is not a right statement. This is not the right. So only statement 1 is correct. That makes C to be the correct option. Earlier this year, Slayton Corporation repurchased 5% of its total shares outstanding, treasury stock. At the time, the book value of Slayton shares exceeded the market value. The shares are expected to be reissued in the future when the market price of Slayton stock increases. So company purchases its own stock from the market, treasury stock. Do Slayton's repurchased shares continue to have voting rights? No. Will we pay to the dividends to the treasury stock? No. Remember, repurchased stock, they are not entitled to any dividends. They are not entitled to voting rights. When we calculate the outstanding stock, we take issued minus treasury stock to calculate outstanding. And it's the outstanding stock that is entitled to receive dividend, and that is entitled to cast vote in case of the election to the board of directors. So it's no voting rights, no cash dividend. That makes A to be the correct option. This much information is given. That is always time consuming. Based on the common size analysis of the two firms' balance sheet, what can we conclude? Common size. We don't have to convert them into common size. It says that based on the common size analysis of the two firms' balance sheet, Amplus company, this first one, has a greater investment in working capital than Brevis company. Look at this. The sheer size of cash, equivalents, account receivables and inventories representing current assets. It is much bigger in size than Brevis. Is more financially leveraged than Brevis company. It might require computation in the tabular form, take much more time. So what you can see from the numbers themselves, even on the percentages terms, they are more. So the rest of them you may have to draw the table, time consuming, and you may justify these, just like the previous question when you have to calculate for every option. So the first one justifies itself in the dollar amounts as well as with the percentage term. The rest of these can be done if you can draw a table like this. This is what put us off in the previous question, because constructing this much question in live class takes time and it's prone to error. So I'm just going for the correct option in this case as well. Greater investment in working capital compared to Brevis company. The numbers show that. Next. Galaxy Corporation manufactures custom motorcycles. Galaxy finances the motorcycles over 36 months for customers who make a minimum down payment of 10%. Historically, Galaxy has experienced bad debts of up to 1% of sales, which you call the allowance for uncollectible accounts. Galaxy also provides 24 months unlimited warranty on all new motorcycles. In the past, warranty expense has averaged 3% of sales. Right, now we have two pieces of information. Allowance for uncollectible account is charged at the rate of 1% of sales, and the warranty expense is charged at the rate of 3% of sales. Those who have read the US based accounting, they would know what I'm doing. Ignoring taxes, how does the recognition of bad debt expense and the warranty expense at the time of sale affects Galaxy liabilities? Now gentlemen, those who have read, they will find it easier. Those who haven't, please make sure you get fuller understanding. Whenever we create provision or allowance for doubtful debts at the date of sale, these are the entries passed, just for the sake of understanding. Warranty expense. When we charge 1% of sale as our estimated bad debt, the entry we pass is we debit income statement or bad debt expense. Mind it, these are not the actual bad debts. These are the estimated bad debts. Income statement or bad debt expense, it is estimated. No one has yet refused to pay. So debit your income statement or bad debt expense, credit allowance for uncollectible accounts. There is no liability in the debit and no liability in the credit. But when you create the provision for warranty, the entry we make is the estimated warranty expense. We debit warranty expense estimated. We credit warranty liability. Please note this down. Those of you who have not accounting background, it might help you to solve some question like this. Warranty expense is debited and warranty liability is credited. Right? And when the bad debt is charged, we debit bad debt and credit bad debt expense, credit allowance for uncollectible account. Right? The question says, how does the recognition of bad debt expense, when the bad debt expense is charged, estimated bad debt, it's debit income statement, credit allowance for uncollectible account. This is shown as a contra asset on the balance sheet in the current asset side, and we show this as a deduction from our gross receivables. So no impact upon liability, no effect, no effect. But when warranty expense is charged, we debit warranty expense, credit warranty liability. In this case, liability is increasing, so that makes A to be the correct option. And A it is. Right? A was the right answer. Next, earlier this year, Ponca Corporation purchased non-dividend paying equity securities which it classified as trading security. Mind the word held for trading, which means any income, any dividend, any interest received is part of income statement. At the same time, any unrealized gain and loss goes to income statement as well. Okay. The cost was 400,550 when they were acquired during the current year, but at the balance sheet date, the fair value is 435 for X, 545 for Y. Now, what is the increase for X 35? This 35,000 goes straight to the income statement because it is held for trading, HFT. And 550, This Y has gone down to 545. There is a loss of 5,000. Right? So now it says, what amount should Ponca report in its year-end income statement and balance sheet as a result of its investment in security X and Y? Since there has been a net 30,000 increase in the fair value of X and Y, so there has to be a gain, and of course it's an unrealized one, so it's either B or C. 30,000 unrealized gain. It's an HFT, goes to income statement. What would be the value on the balance sheet? As I said, HFT is reported at fair value. The fair value of these two is 08980. It means it will be reported at 980. That makes C to be the correct option. C it is. 30,000 unrealized gain and 980 the fair value of these two held for trading investment securities. Current assets that arise from the accrual process most likely include what? Account receivables, yes. Marketable security. It is a current asset, but it doesn't result from accrual. You acquire marketable securities by paying cash. So it's a cash converted into marketable security. Mafi accrual here. Cash equivalents, some other equivalent cash, some trade marketable, the security which are readily convertible to cash are called cash equivalents. You would have acquired these cash equivalents by spending cash. Cash equivalents are acquired for cash also. So they're not accrued. They're not accrued. They are obtained by giving cash. Cash is converted into cash equivalents and marketable securities. But account receivables can be created without cash being involved. You sell your goods and services, debit account receivables, credit your revenue. No cash has gone. It has been created through accrual process. That makes A to be the correct option. Next, do the following characteristics have to be met in order to classify a liability as a current and non-current? As a current liability. Do the following characteristics have to be met in order to classify a liability as a current on the balance sheet? First criteria or first characteristics, settlement is expected within 1 year or operating cycle, whichever is less. No, this is wrong. Greater, not less. First characteristic is wrong. Second, settlement will require the use of cash within 1 year or operating cycle, whichever is greater. Now, this is interesting. It apparently looks to be the correct option. Settlement will require the use of cash. Just this one word only has made this characteristics incorrect. Because we do not always pay cash in settling all the liabilities. No, this could be little confusing. Yes, we do not always pay cash in settling liability. For example, we might have received some cash from our customers in advance. We haven't. It's a liability. Receiving cash from customer in advance is a liability. Bank debit and advance credit. Now this liability is to be settled. Advance from customer is a liability. When we deliver the goods or we provide the service, this liability is neutralized. We didn't pay any cash. So it doesn't always require cash to settle the liability. This is wrong as well. That means both of these statements are incorrect. No. Next. Ascot Corporation has 4 million shares of common stock authorized, 2.4 million of shares of stock issued. This is the maximum number of shares you can sell. This is what you have issued, and 1.8 million shares are outstanding. Now, this is interesting. This is authorized, this is issued, and this is outstanding. How many shares of treasury stock does Ascot own, and is the treasury stock reported as an asset or as on the balance sheet? Now, first of all, we discussed a little while earlier, treasury stock is the difference between the stocks issued versus the stock outstanding. We issued 2.4 million shares, out of which outstanding, which are entitled to dividends and voting, are 1.8. The difference between these 0.6 million represents your treasury stock, which makes either A or B to be the correct option. Do we report treasury stock as an asset? Absolutely no. It is reported as a negative item in the statement of change in equity. So that makes B to be the correct option. Selected balance sheet data for Parker Company are as follows. Current assets, blah, 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 what we need. On the common size balance sheet, Parker's current liabilities would be stated as what? First of all, you need to see that current and non-current assets give you the total of assets. Current and non-current liabilities give you total liabilities, and total liabilities and shareholders' equity give you the balance sheet total here as well. This should match, otherwise you will end up in getting a wrong answer. It says what is current liabilities in the common size balance sheet. Current liabilities are 2,000 out of the total 10,000 of the balance sheet footing. Total liabilities plus equity. So that's clearly 20%. That makes B to be the correct option. So much is given. What is needed? Always remember, when you have a sizable question, you need to read the requirement first. This will give you the viewpoint from which you have to see this data. You need to find the current ratio for 2004. Khalas, I need this number. Current ratio means all the current assets, total current assets, divided by the total current liabilities. Rest of it is totally irrelevant for me. See, so reading the requirement helps me cross out what is not needed. I just need the total of 1660 current assets and the current liabilities, and there you go. You get your result. 1660 upon 550 gives you 3.018, and it is given exactly as it is, B. A company that reports under IFRS has developed new product which required a research cost of 2 million, development cost of 3 million. The maximum amount the company can record as a value of the new product on its balance sheet is what? Under IFRS. Remember, we discussed intangible asset has different treatment under the US GAAP, under IFRS. Under the US GAAP, research and development both are expensed, whereas under IFRS, research cost is expensed, whereas development cost can be capitalized if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These 6 criteria, which you can see, the 6 tick signs, are met. So if the research cost is 2, development is 3, 2 and 3. So under the IFRS, this is the maximum amount that we can capitalize. Under the US GAAP, Mafi, nothing can be capitalized, neither research nor development. Right? So since we need to find for IFRS, that's A. A is the right answer. This is a good one now. Again, a bigger question, you need to just read the requirement first. Calculate Carpenter's retained earning and accumulated other comprehensive income as of December 31st, 2007. All right. We need retained earnings. For retained earnings, we have the opening retained earning given as 10.5 million. Let us take different colored pens and hope this time we don't mess things up. Okay. Taking retained earnings in blue color, we retain earning 10.5 million. Common stock, additional treasury stock, they are nothing to do with retained earning. Earned net income 1.7 million. This is a part of retained earning. It is added in retained earning. Declared dividend of 300,000. 75 of the dividends remain unpaid. Unpaid is not the relevance. What is declared is to be deducted from retained earning. Right? What is the second issue? Second is accumulated other comprehensive income. This is the opening balance of your accumulated other comprehensive income. Let us see what will go to this item. Purchase held to maturity securities of 100,000. The securities have fair value of this and this. Since held for trading securities, their price may go up and down, but held to maturity securities are reported at amortized cost. Fair value change has no relevance at all. We discussed this a little while ago. So this is totally that you can ignore. Purchase available for sale securities for 250. The securities have a fair value of 225. Now this decrease in the fair value of 25,000 of AFS must be deducted from other comprehensive income. I have written it as negative 25. Then translated the financial statement of a foreign subsidiary and calculated 90,000 unrealized gain. Translation gain and loss, this is added in other comprehensive income. Right? 90,000 would be added. Then purchased treasury stock for 75,000. The stock was valued at whatever the value of treasury stock, it is deducted from the equity, but not the retained earning or other comprehensive. It is totally irrelevant. So totaling these numbers, 10.5 million, this one, 1.7 million less 3 will give you 11.90. Then taking 450, deducting 25 from it, adding 90 will give you 515. Right? So we need to calculate the retained earnings and the accumulated other comprehensive income, so that gives you B to be the correct option. Next, which of the transactions is most likely to be recognized on the firm's statement of changes in equity? Declaring a dividend on common stock, yes. This is what is charged to retained earning. Whenever we declare a dividend, the entry we make is debit retained earnings and credit dividend payable. Every dividend we pay, property dividend, cash dividend, stock dividend, bonus dividend, it is paid out of retained earning. So declaring a dividend from common stock is paid out of retained earning. This is true. Buying a machine from an equipment dealer, it has nothing to do with equity. We debit machine, credit the vendor or bank. Investing cash in an exchange traded fund, again it's involved cash and investment, doesn't involve retained earnings. So only the first item involves retained earnings. So A is the right answer. The statement of changes in equity is least likely to provide information on the firm's what? Statement of changes in equity is least likely. Mind the word. Repayment of bond principal. It has nothing to do with statement of changes in equity. When you repay the bond, we debit bonds, credit bank. Liabilities being discharged or extinguished, we debit bonds and credit bank. It has nothing to do with retained earnings or equity. Payment of dividend, yes, it is charged against retained earnings. Statement changes it is reflected in the statement of changes in equity through retained earnings. Comprehensive income, yes, it's a part of statement of changes in equity. It's the part of statement changes. This is not. A is the odd man out, least likely, and A is your right answer. Next. GTO Corporation purchased all of the common stock of Charger Company for 4 million. This is a good question, and for this let me write on the formula. We just discussed a little while earlier how do you calculate goodwill. Goodwill is due to consideration paid plus fair value of non-controlling interest minus fair value of assets minus fair value of liabilities. If the result of this formula is positive, you have a positive goodwill or an intangible asset which you will report in the consolidated balance sheet of the parent. If the result is negative, it's called the bargain purchase, where there is a gain on acquisition. This gain is reported in the group consolidated income statement. It's very unlikely you people will be tested on this because consolidation is a very challenging topic. This consolidation alone needs 1 month to understand. So luckily you're not going that deep into accounting. As I said, your accounting is just inch deep and miles long. So this is the formula. Let us plug in the number. GTO Corporation purchased all of the common stock of Charger Company for 4 million. This is the consideration paid. At the time, Charger reported total assets 3 million and total liability 1 million. I don't care about the book value. Book value 3 million of assets, 1 million of liabilities. I need the acquisition date fair value. At the acquisition date, the fair value of the assets was 3.5. Yes. Acquisition date fair value of liability was 1.3. Yes, that is relevant. And since we have acquired all of the shares, there is no non-controlling interest. 100% acquisition has been made. So this is what you have paid, and what you have acquired, 3.5 less 1.3 is 2.2. Now this will tell you all story. You purchased a company with a net fair value of 2.2 million, fair value of net assets, fair value minus fair liabilities, and you paid 4 million for this. A company for which individual assets and liabilities fair value is 2.2 net. You are paying 4 million for this. Why are you paying more? This additional payment is for goodwill, which will be considered as an intangible asset in the group balance sheet. 1.8 million. Now, what is the next part? We got the result, but the second part says what amount goodwill should report, and is it necessary for GTO to amortize goodwill? No. Goodwill is not amortized. It is tested for impairment. We will discuss it later. So it is not amortized. That makes A to be the correct option. A it is. This company requires what? Calculate Duster's liabilities and stockholders' equity as of December 31st, 2007. Liabilities and stockholders' equity. Okay. Let us call in our marker function and take the liabilities in blue color and stockholders' equity in red color. Now let us just mark these one by one. First, take in all the liabilities. Unearned revenue is a liability, right? Then accounts payable is a liability. Accrued expenses, the expenses that have been incurred not yet paid, is a liability. Long-term debt is a liability. Common stock, it's a part of stockholder equity. Capital in excess of par, this is called additional paid in capital, called share premium in India and Pakistan. It's a part of equity. Common stock at par, it's equity. Capital in excess of par, equity. Treasury stock, it is equity, but it is shown as a deduction. Retained earnings, equity. Accumulated other comprehensive income, equity. If you add all blues net and add all reds, the total should be 3790, and for the red one it should be 3420, right? And there you go. C is your right answer. C it is. Next. Common size balance sheet expresses all balance sheet items as a percentage of assets, not sales, not equity. Wrong. Straightforward question C. What is Delta's total liabilities to equity ratio? This is a good one. This question is a good one. We have been given the common size income statement and balance sheet at the same time, and we are required to calculate the total liabilities to total equity ratio, and we have none. Let us find out first. Earning after tax is 18%. 18% of what? 18% of sales, because earning after tax is an income statement item. Income statement item on common size is expressed as a percentage of sales. 18% of sales, 300, gives you 54. Equity, 40%. Equity is a balance sheet item expressed as a percentage of total assets. 40% of 1400 gives you 560. Current assets, 60% of what? Total assets. 60% of 1400 gives you 840. Current liability, 30%. It's a balance sheet item expressed as a percentage of total asset. 30% of 1400 gives you 420. We need total liabilities, but we only have current liabilities. But we do have total assets. This can help. This can help. We know assets is equal to liabilities plus equity. And if you want to calculate liabilities, total liabilities is equal to assets minus equity. Do we have assets? Yes. What's the number? 1400. Do we have equity? Yes. 560. So the difference between these gives you the total liabilities. So it's 1400 less 560 is 840. This will serve as a numerator, 840, and total equity is already given. This will serve as a denominator. 840 by 560 gives you 1.5, and that is C. C. Liabilities are best described as what? Obligations that are expected to require a future outflow of resources. Look no further. A is the right answer. Residual ownership of interest, that is equity. Resources that are expected to provide future benefit, that is asset. So that makes A to be the correct option. A it is. Next. Which of the following firm is most likely to present a liquidity-based balance sheet? Banks. Look no further. A is the right answer. A firm's balance sheet prepared under the IFRS least likely to include what? Least likely. This turns the question around. Market value of inventory can be. Market value could be cost or NRV, whichever is lower. NRV, if there is no selling or completion cost, NRV could be the market price. This is possible. Fair value of property, plant and equipment. Yes. Fair value of property, plant and equipment, certain items under the IFRS may be required to be reported at fair value through revaluation gain. That is possible. So A, possible under IFRS. B is possible in IFRS. Market value of the firm's equity. Now this is not right. Equity is reported at book value in the balance sheet, not market value. This is least likely. It is least likely. C. A segment of common size balance sheet of Olsen Company is in its most recent year shows the following data. Common stock 1%, additional paid in capital 19%. Additional paid in capital, I just told you, is also called share premium in our part of the world. Preferred stock is 15%. How should an analyst most appropriately interpret this data? Proceeds from the issuance of common stock are 20% of total assets. 1% common stock, 19% additional paid capital, together 20%. Correct. Because common stock, if $1 stock is sold for $20, we receive $20, out of which $1 represents the par of the stock, $90 represents the additional paid in capital called the share premium. So this is true. 20% total assets. It's a true statement. Further says shareholders' equity is 35% of the total assets. Total equity is 35. Preferred stock 19%. Yes. When you say shareholders' equity, you are talking about the common equity. And common equity excludes preferred stock. So it's not 35%, it's 20%. Wrong. Preferred stock is 15% of the shareholders' equity. No. Preferred stock is 15% of the total assets. Wrong. So the correct option is A. Two of the elements of balance sheet are, these are the three elements. Assets is equal to liabilities plus equity. Assets are yes. Equity is yes. Liabilities yes, not income. Equities but not cash flows. A. Straightforward. According to the Financial Accounting Standard Board, FASB, talking about the US GAAP, what is the appropriate measurement base for equipment used in the manufacturing process and inventory that is held for sale? Remember, under the US GAAP, assets, property, plant and equipment are reported at original historical cost, which means either A or B. What about the inventory? I told you inventory under the US GAAP is measured in two ways. One is NRV and cost, whichever is lower, just like IFRS. Other is the LCM rule, which is quite distinct from this method, right? So it could be NRV or cost, whichever is lower, or LCM rule. So which of these makes sense now? We have lower cost of market or this. So the only combination that fits well in the given situation is equipment at historical cost and inventory at lower of cost or market, called LCM rule. That is A. Liquidity-based presentation of a balance sheet is most likely used by a bank, done third time. A key limitation of the balance sheet, mind the word, key limitation of the balance sheet in the financial analysis is that A. Liquidity and solvency ratios require information from other financial statements. Wrong. Liquidity and solvency can both be calculated from balance sheet. Both can be calculated from balance sheet. We don't need income statement for that. Wrong. This is not a limit. In fact, it's an incorrect statement. Some items are recognized when they are unlikely to reflect a flow of economic benefits. Wrong. No such items can be recognized on the balance sheet unless it meets the criteria of either economic benefits will flow, that will be an asset, either an economic benefit will outflow, it will be a liability. This is wrong as well. So what is the limitation? These two statements are wrong, not limitations. See, different balance sheet items may be measured differently. Yes, some items are measured at historical cost, marketable securities measured at fair value, some are reported at NRV, some are lower of cost or market value. This is the limitation. Different items are measured differently. That's the limitation. Next, and that made C to be the correct option. Consider the following. Statement 1. Copyrights and patents are tangible assets? No, they are intangible. Wrong. Purchased copyrights and patents are amortized? Yes, they are amortized. On straight line basis? Yes, straight line basis. Over 30 years? No. We will study this in our reading long-lived assets. Remember, the patents and copyrights are amortized and we have to compare two lives. One is your economic life, or you call the useful life. Other is the legal life. Let's say patent has a legal life of 20 years. You have been given protection for 20 years by the Patent Registration Authority. But your senior management have assessed that the economic life is just 12 years. So in this case, you take the lower of these two. Useful life or legal life, whichever is lower. This is used as a base, and then the patent is amortized over the lower of these two. So not 30 years, there is not exact specification of years. This is wrong. Both of these statements are wrong. Statement 1 and statement 2 are both wrong. Both are incorrect. A liquidity-based balance sheet on which asset and liabilities are not classified as current and non-current is permitted under what? We discussed in our LOS reading, IFRS allows, both of them allows classified form. IFRS permits that if the liquidity-based balance sheet gives a more relevant picture of the state of the affairs of the business, it's more relevant than the classified, then liquidity-based balance sheet can be given. IFRS permits this, but GAAP doesn't. Right? IFRS permits that firms may present liquidity-based balance sheet if this format is more reliable and relevant than the classified one. But GAAP only allows the classified one, so that makes C to be the correct option. Next, again a bigger question. What we need? Just quick ratio. And quick ratio can be quickly done by taking your cash, account receivables, and marketable securities. Inventories and prepayments are excluded, so it means these items 100, 750, and 300, and divided this accounts payable, short-term debt, and nothing else. So dividing this with this gives you 2.67:1, which is C.